Pig Trail Nation's Mike Irwin joining us on halftime. Mike, good morning. Quite a weekend, huh? How you feeling?
Feeling good. Two things happened after that game that were remarkable to me. First, that thing about the players going around the concourse high-fiving the fans. I've never seen anything like that before. This is kind of the opposite of storming the field. This is the players storming the stands and going in there and just, I mean, there's no telling how many people the Evil Eloy high-fived. I'm thinking the guy may break his fingers or dislocate a finger or whatever just doing that.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
I don't know if fans have had a chance to see the video, but Hogs Plus had the whole 6-minute video of Vahiva leading. It was Kojal and then Bowles and a couple others, and then the whole team was following them out in the hog pen. It was Mike. The only thing I remember that felt like that was the Yankees winning the championship in '96, and then they did a ring around the field, but that was on the field. That's like when Cal Ripken broke Gehrig's record. He high-fived everybody, but he was still running around the warning track. To go up into the stands, that was amazing.
This is the players going. This may be the new thing to avoid getting fined. Instead of the fans storming the field, the players storm the stands. I don't know. It was incredible. Never seen that before. The other thing was those two press conferences, and I don't know if you saw both of them, but combined, there was some very interesting stuff said by both coaches, and they both broke down at one point. I thought they were going to choke up and cry. And I've never seen that from Van Horn ever. I've always thought of him as just stiff upper lip. Nothing gets to this guy. You could see he has really felt the pressure of that 2018 thing that people continue to talk about. You've done all this stuff, but you haven't won it all. And then all this talk about, you win things, but then you can't get out of your own regional in front of your own fans. I think that was eating on him. And then he made that statement that this team was so much fun to coach and they were so talented that he would have accepted. It would have been very difficult for him if he did not figure out a way to get them to Omaha. And I thought the emotion he showed was a release of all of that stuff. Now, I talked to somebody after the game that knows him pretty well, and I was like, man, what is all that about? And he just said to me, sometimes as a coach, you reach a point where you realize that you might be better off enjoying games with your fans and with your family, enjoying games with the fans, and sitting up there and rewarding yourself for all the success you have instead of beating yourself to death all the time about some of the problems. So I don't know if that means that he's reached a point where he's ready to go. I would have said before this, no, he's probably going to coach a few more years. Now I have questions. But then Vitello, he started almost boo-hooing, and the statement he made, guys, where he said, I may have embarrassed my own players. Well, what he was talking about was the way he went out there and started hugging all those Arkansas people and showing the attachment he still has to this program. So I don't know, but those two press conferences were very revealing.
I have a completely different view on it as far as Van Horn is concerned. I think he had that moment because he's a competitor still. And I think that the last 2 years, more than anything, just really grinded his gears and hurt, especially since it happened here at home. And I think that there's an added effect for this being the first Super to win at home since 2019. And there's still going to be a little pain left over from that 2021 team, because I think that's how Dave felt about the 21 team. You know, I can't believe we didn't get there. We've got Kevin Kopps. We've got this great lineup and everything. People ask if Dave is going to retire anything soon, and the whole idea of who's going to replace. I don't think we have to worry about that anytime soon. I think Dave is still as big of a competitor now as he's ever been, and I think the age of his kids is a main reason why. He doesn't feel like he's missing the things that he was missing before. So I view it differently. I think that press conference moment was more just about, I think, relief more than anything from the last 2 years.
And I would have agreed with you before the press conference, but now I'm not so sure. So we're both watching something being said and kind of interpreting it in a different way. And I don't know for sure. It's just, I just really started thinking about this. I've always thought of Van Horn as, again, this stiff upper lip guy. You know, he can deal with anything. And then you see in that's been wearing on him. It has been, especially like you say, this last 2 years where he's gotten all this criticism of you win all this stuff, and then you get in front of your own fans and you can't get us out of here. And this team is different, guys. I'm not one of these people that goes back and checks records for 25 years in the past. Somebody told me today that this is the only team that's gone 5-0 since some ridiculous number far back, 5-0 in the regionals and supers. I didn't necessarily think that was that rare, but maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's the first time they've done it. Maybe it's the first time Arkansas has gone 5-0 when they've gone to Omaha. I don't know.
I think they've done it, but I think it's been a long time ago, and it was under Dave. For me, a thing that stands out about this team, and I don't think it's quite the same against LSU, but it certainly did stand out in this series with Tennessee. When you look at teams that could be somewhat identical in terms of talent level, and I just loved how the velocity on both pitching staffs, the power on both teams, but there's just these subtleties to baseball that when you're watching it, one base makes such a difference. The Hogs do the small things. Tennessee, I don't know how much attention they pay to those small things. There's a ground ball gets past their second baseman. You make that play, Arkansas doesn't score a run in the sixth inning on Saturday. Kojal, dirt ball read. The Hogs, look, they hit better than they did last year. It's a deeper pitching staff last year. But the thing that stands out for me about this team more than anything, Mike, is that they do those small things that all lead to a big thing. And that big thing is wins and a visit to Omaha.
Yeah, and with all this talk about Arkansas really doesn't have the starting pitching that it necessarily has had in some of these really good teams of the past. The bullpen is a totally different story. And you look at what happened when Dave Van Horn made his decision, to pull his starting pitcher, and then what happened to Vitello when he pulled his. The difference from that point on was like night and day. That ended up, and of course, I still think that Vitello probably did the right thing. The guy was up to 75 pitches. He hadn't given up a lot of runs, but, I think when he gave up that home run, and I just think Vitello went, he's done. But then what happened when he brings in all these relievers and it just blows up in his face? And with Van Horn, it works. So this bullpen is amazing to me. And again, the difference between this team right now and even where it was when it went to Birmingham and just kind of didn't focus. And now there's been nothing but focus ever since then. It's almost like they know how good they are, and now the real part of the season is here, and we're going to do this. But, guys, now you got to turn around and play LSU? What is the deal with that? Shouldn't they reseed the World Series when all of this is over? Do you agree with that, or do you just say, well, you just leave it the way it was? Because this thing looks totally different than it did the day I looked at those brackets before the regionals.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the sentiment, but I don't like the idea of reseeding a tournament. You're going to have to play LSU at some point. If you're going to win the championship, you got to play LSU in this. They're going to be on your side of the bracket. You might as well. You're going to either go against Anderson or Anthony Ianson. It's not like you're going to be missing one of their aces anyway. So, hey, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think they should reseed. I don't know of any other tournament that does. I think maybe the JUCO World Series does, but this isn't JUCO baseball. So I don't have a problem with it. I just figure, Mike, if LSU is on your side of the bracket, you got to play them anyway to get there. So you might as well get it out of the way.
Well, it's if they get there, if they do it all, the circumstances are pretty difficult. I think Vitello, even though he didn't mention it, has an argument with the way they seeded Tennessee as a 14, were they a 13 seed?
Oh, they should have won a series in the last month of the regular season, and then they would have been seeded better. I mean, for every complaint that a team has about their seeding, there's a point that the committee has for why they weren't seeded where they think they should have been seeded. It's I don't know. The complaints about seeding sometimes, I think, just for me, falls on a deaf ear. Win a series in the last month, and maybe they'd have been playing at home.
Well, I looked at the numbers, and I thought, man, they're a 9, 10, 11 seed somewhere in there. Then they wouldn't have played Arkansas, a 3 seed. I think that the committee clearly did that to create this matchup, which was the highlight of that whole super regional. I mean, that game was the game. You know it was. Everybody's watching it, and that's good. I understand that. The ESPN had to love it. But what if we end up with one of these strange College World Series in which two teams nobody thinks much about end up playing each other? Does that knock the audience down, the viewership down? If it's not a team like Arkansas or an LSU,
well, like Murray State versus Coastal Carolina, if that would happen.
If something like that happens, what's that going to do to the viewership?
I don't know. Maybe it's something to celebrate. I mean, getting a couple of mid majors in, and there's two sides to that coin. I mean, we want the idea that we're in an era now in college sports where the little guys are going to think, why do we even exist when we're farm teams for the others? And now I'm reminded that Coastal Carolina 2 years ago, Liam Doyle was their ace, or would have been on the team that's in the College World Series. He's not going to Omaha. Right. So, I don't know. I don't have a problem with the way they seeded it. And, I don't think it's going to be Murray State versus Coastal Carolina, but that wouldn't be a terrible thing for the game of college baseball, and it would actually be a nice little signal to the mid-majors that they still exist and they still matter. Not like I want to see it, because I want to see the Razorbacks there.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying. I don't know. I'm not sure the average fan thinks that way.
No, probably not.
I'm talking about people that don't have ties to either team. They need a hook. They need some reason to. Wow, what? I never heard of those teams, and then they don't watch it. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Look, it's good. It worked out the right way for Arkansas. Now we'll see. Maybe this is a year, guys. They certainly have the players to make it happen.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, scores, and even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything. With updated odds on the MLB, UFC, and boxing to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline. The game starts here.